These athletes have value to the world. I love everything the athletes stand for as themselves, and I hate everything the IOC stands for in its actions to silence these athletes. These are the documents that every athlete has to abide by. This is straight from the IOC, and we're going to read through every single word. I have 4 documents. We've got, wow, we're doing this first. First, we are starting with this FAQ. Oh, that's trippy. The FAQ of this big long document, which we will read last. This is the FAQ for that document. Then we're going to go into the guidelines for social and digital media posts, and this illustrative guidance, which I reference in the other video as being the handbook on how to be as boring as possible while the world is watching you. So we're going to get through. I've linked chapters below if you want to skip to any document. But as I mentioned, we are starting with the frequently asked questions for Rule 40. Man, I hate Rule 40. So we have frequently asked questions, commercial opportunities for participants at the Olympic Games Milano Cortina 2026. Here we go. In June 2025, the IOC approved the commercial opportunities for participants during the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026, also known as the Key Principles, on the basis of Rule 40. Dun, dun, dun. This FAQ document is intended to assist with the practical implications of the key principles, which we will read at the end. We begin with the athletes. What do I need to know? What do the key principles apply? Who do the key principles apply to? How do these key principles apply to me? When do these key principles apply? What commercial activities can I engage in around the Olympic Winter Games? It's a big one. For sponsors, what should my sponsors do if they want to use my name or image during the games period? Can my personal sponsor congratulate me on my performance? Then for further information, why are there limits on my commercial activities with non-Olympic partners? If you watch the other video, the non-Olympic partners are what I call the nopers. The nope, you're not allowed to use the Olympics. So these are the people that sponsored you personally. Who will oversee the key principles and how? Who should I contact for further information? And then this is really what Rule 40 pertains to. These are the key partners that the IOC is trying to keep safe of other competition. Here we go, athletes. Nothing on that side. Athletes, what do I need to know? Building on the past practice, the IOC continues to provide opportunities and flexibility for you to benefit from commercial opportunities during and around the Olympic Winter Games, Milano Cortina 2026. The overall importance of personal sponsorships for athletes, which includes appearing in advertising for those sponsors to generate income, is acknowledged. Based on the key principles, this advertising can continue to appear during and around the Olympic Games if it meets certain criteria. It is important to ensure that you inform yourself, your agents, and, if any, and your personal sponsors about the current Rule 40 framework, and that you make sure the rules are respected. These rules can be found in the Key Principles document, with more practical information in the illustrative guidance. Please note that your National Olympic Committee, or NOC, will oversee advertising targeted at your country and may also have specific rules, so please check whether such rules exist and ensure you comply with them as a member of the NOC team. Who do the key principles apply to? The key principles apply to all competitors, team members, coaches, trainers, and officials participating in the Olympic Winter Games. When we refer to the athletes in this FAQ, it means all of these participants, that whole list. Olympic partners are the brands or companies that have sponsorship or official merchandise licensing contracts with the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 Organizing Committee, or NOCs, and the official broadcasters, that's a big one, with the IOC, which the IOC has granted rights to broadcast the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. All other brands or companies or organizations are non-Olympic partners, the NOPers. How do these key principles apply to me? The key principles apply to all forms of commercial promotion that you may be involved in. This includes social media and social network posts and promotions, whether paid for or not. Traditional advertising in paid-for space, including press, billboards, TV, radio, online, and in-store advertising, any PR, including personal appearances and press releases, lending or gifting of products to athletes, and on-product and in-store promotions. When do these key principles apply? The key principles apply during the Games period, which begins January 30th when the Olympic Village opens and ends 24th February 2026, 2 days after the closing ceremonies and everything in between inclusive. They give a nice little diagram. They show the 6th and the 22nd as the ceremony days, and then the beginning and end of basically the blackout period, as I call it. Moving on, what commercial activity can I engage in around the Olympic Winter Games? First, enter into personal sponsorship and endorsement contracts. You can enter into contracts with personal sponsors at any time before, during, or after the Olympic Winter Games, Milano Cortina 2026. If you are currently looking for a personal sponsor, the IOC provides you with support and advice on developing a personal brand through Athlete 365. Through their contribution to the Olympic movement as a whole, the Olympic partners provide indirect support. Indirect support. That's the big word. To hundreds of athletes around the world in many different sports disciplines. In addition, any Olympic partner may enter into a contract with you to become your personal sponsor. You may also enter into contracts with brands other than Olympic partners. Please check any requirements your NOC might have relating to the kinds of entities which can sponsor their athletes. For example, under your team agreement, if you have one. What this means is for Team Canada, like Lululemon sponsors, and it used to be Roots. So, I mean, technically you could have a clothing brand, but the rules for the NOC, once you get into like the Olympic Village, are very strict on what you are and are not allowed to wear in and around like the Olympic Village or places where you have to represent the people who have paid a lot of money to sponsor the NOC. So what this is really saying is that, yep, you can have sponsors. We're not telling you you can't, although there are restrictions maybe with your NOC that make certain sponsorships hard to acquire, which then goes into question 2, how can I thank my sponsors? You can recognize the support provided by your personal sponsor to help you on your journey to sporting success. Yes, but during the Games period, you may provide one simple thank you message to each of your non-Olympic personal sponsors. One post, one time. What is a single thank you? A single thank you message can be posted on multiple platforms, which means posting a single identical message on multiple platforms is allowed, but must take place at the same time. So you can't even post the same message but on different days. It has to be one post pushed through online at the exact same time. Some NOCs may permit athletes to post additional thank you messages. Please check with your NOC for further details. Before or after the Games period, there are no limits on the number of thank you messages that you may provide to your non-Olympic personal sponsors. That's great. Before the Games when the world isn't watching, and after the Games when the world isn't watching, go ham. You can post as many thank yous as you want. The thank you message permitted under the key principles are intended to enable you to recognize long-term support from personal sponsors rather than enable pay per post or similar deals focused on promoting a sponsor brand. This is so frustrating because what if you're an athlete who doesn't have many sponsors, or you go viral for some funny reason and then you have the opportunity because you've done something that has brought eyes to the Olympics? They say you can't profit off of that. Just remember, you can thank people before and after the games all you want, once during the games if you are already sponsored, but you cannot, a company cannot reach out to you while you're in the games and say, hey, we love what you do. We want to give you some money for a post because we had no idea who you were before this. Can't do that. Not allowed as an athlete. So here we go. This is the goods. Thank you messages for non-Olympic partners should not, first and foremost, contain any Olympic properties, such as the Olympic symbol or other Olympic images, mottos, or phrases, such as Milano Cortina 2026 and other properties linked in the key principles. 2, cannot contain photographs or videos from Olympic venues or Olympic medal ceremonies. 3, cannot feature your Olympic team, your official Olympic team uniform in any Olympic medal. 4, include any personal endorsement of a product or service. 5, suggest that the product or service helped your sporting performance. Thank you messages to Olympic partners should not be combined with messages to non-Olympic partners because that infers an association. You do not need to notify the IOC or your NOC before posting thank you messages, but please ask your NOC if you have any doubts about whether these comply with the key principles. If your thank you message is to an Olympic partner, you can use photographs including Olympic properties from the Olympic venues or Olympic medal ceremonies or featuring your official Olympic team uniform or Olympic medals. However, thank you messages for Olympic partners should not contain videos from the Olympic venues or Olympic medal ceremonies. 2, include any personal endorsement of a product or service. Or 3, suggest that a product or service helped your sporting performance. There are no limits on the numbers of thank you messages to Olympic partners at any time. We're like 3 pages in, and I hope you can see the trend of what you are and are not allowed to say. Moving over to number 3, can I participate in advertising campaigns conducted by my sponsors? You can be included in advertising campaigns and other commercial activities run by your personal sponsors, including during the games period. That's awesome, in accordance with the key principles. The main rules are summarized below. Sounds awesome. Personal sponsors must obtain your consent to use your name or image in advertising. Any campaigns running during the games period by non-Olympic partners must not use Olympic properties, must respect IOC and NOC policies, and must be generic. I wish I could highlight generic. This means that they must, 1, not make any connection with the Olympic Winter Games other than by featuring you as an Olympic athlete. Also, it must be regularly in market at least 90 days before the games period. And 3, be run consistently and not escalated during the games period. Requirements 2 and 3 will be applied flexibly to support athletes who may be selected to the Olympic Winter Games at a late stage. I referenced this in the other video. So many athletes. So I know I've watched athletes end of January who've gone to the Olympics 3, 4, 5 times before, only officially get selected the week before the opening ceremony or the week before the village opens. It is so common for people to be selected way after these 90 days. Like Connor McDavid and NHL players and a few Olympic medalists from the last games may be pre-selected. I would say the vast majority of athletes don't actually get confirmation until well after this October 2025 deadline. The illustrative guidance we'll get to later on what would be considered generic advertising is available from NOCs and online to help you and your personal sponsors comply with these requirements. The rule book on how to be as boring as possible. These campaigns or activities are, however, subject to notification to the IOC and or NOC as per the applicable rules, as described in the next section. Olympic partners, however, can run advertising campaigns which include Olympic properties and make other connections to the Olympic Games in accordance with their contracts with the IOC, NOC, or Olympic Games Organizing Committee, the OCOG. We'll get into the sponsors. So now you want to talk to your sponsor about what they can and cannot do during the games period. What is it? What should my sponsors do if they want to use my name or image during the games period? If your personal sponsor plans to feature you in advertising or on a multi-territory basis, meaning in more than one country, it is important that such advertising complies with the IOC key principles. If your personal sponsor plans to feature you in an advertising in only one country, it should consult with your NOC to understand the rules that apply in that country. I mean, sure, that's fair. Your personal sponsor must notify the IOC of any multi-territory advertising plans by December 19, here we got highlight again, December 19, 2025, through the simple IOC advertising notification portal available here. The purpose of this notification is to provide personal sponsors and athletes with certainty by enabling the IOC to check advertising before it is distributed. Later notifications is possible for advertising featuring an athlete who is selected for the Olympic Games after December 19, 2025. As I mentioned before, I know it is so common. It's more common than it is not to be selected even after December 19. If the IOC has feedback on notified advertising, it will provide you and your sponsor within 10 days. Here we go again. Olympics partners can run compliant advertising and notify at any time. They're not, any Olympic partner gets a free rein. They just say, hey, we're running an ad. It's February 12th. I want to run an ad February 12th in 5 minutes. Cool, you're all good. If you're an athlete, you didn't notify a month and a half before, too bad, can't do it. With regard to social media advertising, personal sponsors do not need to provide advance notice for each individual post, but details of the sponsor's social media advertising plan, including the nature and planned content of the posts, should be included in the sponsor's online notification. To me, when I read this gets so gray because they're saying, yeah, an advertiser can post an individual post, but technically every post is an ad, even if there's no ad spend associated with it, which is where these rules get very gray. Yeah, you can make a post, but you're a sponsor of an athlete posting about the athlete, even without ad spend attached to it, that could be deemed a sponsored post. Can my personal sponsor congratulate me on my performance at the Olympic Winter Games? What sponsor won't want to do this? This is crazy. During the games period, only Olympic partners can engage in congratulatory advertising. Remember what I was just saying about is a post a sponsor ad or not? Well, Olympic partners can engage in congratulatory advertising at any time. Before and after the games periods, non-Olympic partners, the NOPers, can engage in congratulatory advertising in support of their contracted athletes, but without using any Olympic properties. So even after the games are done, the sponsor, the NOPer, is still confined to non-Olympic properties, even though we are outside of the blackout period, or as they call it, the games period. That's it. That's what sponsors can. That's what your sponsor can do. So make sense of that, what you will. Try to post, try not to post. Good luck. When we get into further information, this is what I referenced in the first video. Why are there limits on my commercial activities with non-Olympic partners? This is it. The Olympic Games are unique, with athletes from all countries of the world represented, competing across a huge variety of sports. However, while some national Olympic teams receive substantial public funding to go to the Olympic Games, others receive none. So many more athletes than you may realize get no funding, even from their NOC. These rely completely on funding from private sources, such as sponsorship. The IOC even acknowledges this. The only way that athletes got there is from private sources. But many national Olympic teams and the majority of Olympic athletes do not have their own sponsorship income. This whole paragraph acknowledges to me that the IOC is aware that money is incredibly hard to come by athletes. And they're still justifying that they can't make money after they've done years, if not decade or more of hard work to get to the Olympics, and you still have no sponsorship income, but you still aren't allowed to make money while you're there. Revenue is distributed all around the world, $5 billion. If you're confused by what this means, so was I. But the documents and the other video shed some more light on that, so go watch that after. To address this difference, the IOC's commercial programs are structured to help all Olympic teams and IOC Refugee Olympic Team compete at the Olympic Games. All athletes compete at the Olympic Games as part of a National Olympic Committee or team, an NOC team. These teams are supported by the IOC through the solidarity model. This is what the IOC loves to throw forward, to push out to the masses. Athletes also benefit from the support the IOC provides the international federations, the sport governing bodies. For bobsleigh and skeleton, it's the IBSF, and technically like the NHL would be an international federation, I guess, like in this sense, of the sports represented at the Olympic Games. A third way of benefiting is through the IOC's contribution to the staging of the Olympics. Not only does this cover a big part of the costs of organizing the Olympic Games, it also covers travel, accommodation, and medical care for athletes and their team officials. This is true. It's a very small number when you break it down, as we do in the other video. And it is cool when you're at the games. There are services for athletes free of charge in the village, MRIs, different medical services, dentists, things like that. It is great. It's awesome that they do that. In my opinion, it's also part of what the IOC should do. It is the one representing the best of the best. They should be helping everybody. Athletes can also benefit from individual Olympic solidarity scholarships. These are just some of the examples of how all athletes benefit from the solidarity model of Olympic funding. Notice how they don't mention how the IOC benefits from all of this. This is cleverly omitted. This funding model helps athletes from all countries, especially those who do not have any personal sponsors and who could not attend without solidarity funding. So you can get here on solidarity funding, but you cannot capitalize on being there because of solidarity funding. That's the justification. Thanks to this funding model, the Olympic Games are the most universal sporting event in the world, and as an athlete, you compete against the best athletes from all over the world. That's a different topic for a different video. In addition to solidarity funding, the Rule 40 framework helps to support the commercial programs managed by the organizing committees for the Olympic Games, the OCOGs. So also supports the funding of facilities at the Olympic Games for all athletes and Olympic teams, which is hilarious if you have been following the hockey rink. The hockey rink's in rough shape, was in rough shape. But the IOC says, see, we build you all of these things. We get all of this stuff built. We put money back, and things maybe still don't get finished. In addition, many Olympic partners also provide direct financial support to thousands of individual athletes around the world from many different sports through personal sponsorships. Further, the IOC helps generate awareness of each athlete's achievements worldwide, increasing athletes' value in the eyes of existing and future sponsors by ensuring global broadcasting coverage of the Olympic Games. But you can't use that leverage when it's the hottest. If you do, you're punished. In her open letter in 2019, Kirsty Coventry, the IOC Athletes' Commission Chair at that time, highlighted the risks if the athlete advertising framework were to lose this balance. Everyone's hopeful that Kirsty Coventry, now being the head of the IOC, is a positive because she's a previous athlete. But she also recognizes that if Rule 40's balance changes, this could cause long-term damage to the Olympic funding structure. By one, this is the justification the IOC gives for why you can't make money. Harming the revenue sources that support athletes from all over the world to compete at the Olympic Games. 2, undermining the diversity of the sport disciplines featured at the Olympic Games. 3, negatively impacting the athlete experience during the Olympic Games. And 4, ultimately risking the delivery of the Olympic Games in the future. This is why you can't make money at the Olympics and why you can't say thanks to your sponsors. Because the solidarity model might be disrupted. The Athletes' Rights and Responsibilities Declaration recognizes the right of athletes to generate personal income, as well as respect for the solidarity funding principles of the Olympic movement. The IOC has developed the athlete advertising key principles for the Olympic Games as a reasonable balance between these two factors. That's up for you to decide. The athlete advertising key principles for the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026 apply only for a limited time of 27 days, but still enable athletes to benefit from personal sponsors and appear in well-planned advertising during the Olympic Games. At that time, the Rule 40 framework maintains the value and appeal of official Olympic sponsorship programs to ensure continued support for all athletes and teams, particularly those without sponsorship income, and for the Olympic Games themselves. Okay, they finally acknowledge that it's for their benefit. The limited restrictions for the Games period, I would not call them limited, I would call them overreaching. They enable solidarity, ensuring that collectively we support all teams in the Olympic spirit. Further details on how commercial revenues are distributed are available on Olympic.org. You can also watch my other video that I break that down too. Who will oversee the key principles and how? The IOC will oversee advertising activity from an international perspective, which is why it is important that multi-territory advertising activity is notified to the IOC via the online platform. Single territory campaigns will be overseen by the relevant NOC. Please always check the specific application of key principles with your NOC. If the key principles are not respected, each situation will be considered on a case-by-case basis. The IOC or your NOC may require the advertising be withdrawn or amended. In serious cases, sanctions may be imposed. Here we go. The IOC recommends to NOCs that, in principle, monetary measures should be favored as sanctions rather than sporting sanctions such as withdrawal from the Olympic Games. So it's like the IOC saying, hey, we don't want to kick you out. We'd rather just take the money from you that you made while you were relevant to the world. But if we need to, you'll get kicked out of the Games. Who should I contact for further information? Please contact your NOC for more information on those key principles and the opportunities they afford you and your sponsors. These top partners, these are the people who can do anything they want with you or your likeness at any time during the Olympics. AB and Bev? I don't even know who they are, but they can do whatever they want with you. Airbnb, Alibaba, Allianz, Coca-Cola, not sure what that is, Deloitte, Omega, P&G, Samsung, TCL, Visa. They are the top sponsors. And that is Rule 40, the FAQ of Rule 40. What are your thoughts on this FAQ document? Does it make sense? Does it seem fair? What stood out to you? What do you like? What do you not like? Throw it in the comments if you wish. We are going to move. What did I say we were going to go to next? FAQ. I think we are going to go. FAQ main. We're going to do the social and digital media guidelines. That's where we're going to next. IOC social and digital media guidelines Milano Cortina. This one is going to be a lot of yes and no, yes and no. So, part 1. For athletes participating at the Olympic Games 2026 Cortina, the main objectives of these guidelines is to enable athletes to share their personal experiences at the Olympic Games while protecting the rights of the IOC's media rights holders. This one tells you a lot. So what you can do, this is what you're allowed to do as an athlete. You can take photographs and or record audio and video at the Olympic Winter Games, both inside and outside accredited areas, such as the Olympic Village and competition venues, using your mobile phone, as long as you respect the guidelines. If you have a camera, if you want to record other things, you can't. You can share these photographs on your personal social media accounts and personal websites. You can share your audio and video recordings of up to 2 minutes each on your personal social media accounts and personal websites. Goodbye vlogging. Not allowed. You can share your audio and video from competition venues up to 1 hour before the start of your competition and after you have left the mixed zone and doping control station. You can share it from training venues and practice areas, and you can share from the Olympic Village and or at the opening and closing ceremonies. Remember, it has to be less than 2 minutes and taken on your mobile phone though. What you cannot do, posts with video cannot be shared of the first Olympic medal ceremonies or 2 sports competitions, including anthems, coin toss, or any celebrations on the field of play, live, or if the video is longer than 2 minutes per post. Very cleverly worded. Posts with videos or photographs here cannot be shared if commercial, which includes permitting ads, running ad marketing, making an arrangement with a social media platform or other entity other than any official media rights holder of your country, or promoting any third party or product services except posts with a photograph of an Olympic sponsor's logo, product, or service at the Olympic Games. You cannot share them of medical areas, doping control station, or a prayer room. And you can't use artificial intelligence or any AI-generated content or outputs. The craziest thing for me is permitting ads. The reason that's crazy is because on YouTube, you can't monetize your videos. Even if you abide by all of this, you can't run your own ads. But YouTube will always run ads on videos, even if you don't have your own ads run. So it's like there will be ads run on your videos no matter what on like places like YouTube, but you can't profit off of it. If you do, the IOC can take the video down like it did in my case, or it can take the ad revenue from that video for themselves. Olympic sponsor means sponsors participating in the IOC's highest level of international partnership. The Olympic Partners Program sponsors of your NOC and the sponsors of the OCOG. You can find a list of these sponsors of your NOC or of the Milano Cortina 2026 by checking their websites. Special rules apply to the thank you message to your personal sponsor as set out in the commercial opportunities for participants during the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026 and the related frequently asked questions. We already read that. Please respect the rights of others. See the FAQ for details. And the safe and smooth operation of the Olympic Winter Games. You may give interviews to media in designated areas, in the mixed zones, post-competition press area, in the venue media center, in the main media center, in the Olympic Village Media Center, or Olympic Village Plaza, but not the residential zone of the Olympic Village. And at permitted events, i.e. media tour of the Olympic Village. But you may not act as a journalist, reporter, or any other media capacity. It means you can't go live, probably can't go live at all. Can't go live and ask questions and answer questions about what it's like to be in the village or how training's going, because you'd be acting as a journalist or reporter. And NBC and other people have paid tons of money to have that right taken from you. Failure to comply with these guidelines may result in removal of the non-compliant content. Further measures or actions may be taken in accordance with the Olympic Charter. Part 2, for accredited individuals other than athletes participating at the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina. This is what related to me when I was coaching. These guidelines enable accredited individuals to share their personal experiences at the Olympic Winter Games while protecting the rights of the IOC's media rights holders. Accredited individuals can take photographs and or record audio or video at the Olympic Winter Games, both inside and outside the accredited areas, using their mobile phones, as long as they respect the guidelines. Again, mobile phones. So all you coaches, trainers, support staff, you can take photos with your phones kind of anywhere. Photographs can be shared on personal social media accounts and websites, and audio and video recordings from competition venues can be shared on personal sites and media accounts. Conditions that apply to the posts. Posts cannot be shared of the ceremonies, including opening and closing ceremonies, the field of play, meaning areas that are used for sports competitions, and that begins including anthems, coin tosses, or any celebrations on the field of play, in the training venues or practice areas, or even in the Olympic Village. So no support staff can do any of that. You cannot, it says you can't go live. You can't go live. And that's also what it says. Posts, yep, you did. That's what that means. Okay, it's very clear. Athletes, you can't go live. You will be punished. Oh, here it is. If the video is longer than 2 minutes per post, why not just put 2 minutes or shorter? Purposefully poorly worded. Posts with video or photographs cannot be shared if commercial, which includes, again, permitting ads, running paid marketing, making arrangements with a social media platform or other entity, promoting any third party or products or services, except posts with a photograph of an Olympic sponsor's logo, product or service at the Olympic Winter Games, of any restricted areas, meaning the non-public accredited areas, athlete and coaches areas, medical areas, doping control station, fitness center, dining halls, prayer room, and the residential zones of the Olympic teams. Or this is, again, using artificial intelligence or containing any AI-generated content or outputs. Please respect the rights of others. See the FAQ for details and the safe and smooth. Please respect the rights of others and the safe and smooth operation of the Olympic Winter Games. You may not act as a journalist or reporter or any other media capacity unless you are a journalist with a valid journalist accreditation. Failure to comply with these guidelines may result in removal of the non-compliant content. Further measures may be taken in accordance with the Olympic Charter. And that is the IOC social and digital media guidelines. So, again, is that fair? Do you think it's fair for athletes and support staff and coaches to be limited the way they are from sharing the experience, their experience at the games? I get not acting as a journalist. I have very many opinions about all of this. But what do you think? Yay, nay, support, love, hate? What are your thoughts on these documents? Okay, let's move now to the illustrative guidance for non-Olympic partners. This is for your nopers. These are the people that are not allowed to be associated with the Olympics. So you got a sponsorship and they want to run ads or they want to say thanks. This is what you give them as an athlete. The contents of this is where it gets crazy. Let me zoom in. Weird. Okay. Does not like my trackpad. The introduction. We're going to go through introduction. It's basically a picture book. So there's the generic advertising concept with examples. Actually, technically there's 12 examples. And then the worldwide Olympic partners at the end of basically who have the green light to do whatever they want while they're there with you and your story. So how to be as boring as possible. Introduction to the illustrative guidance. In June 2019, the IOC updated the Rule 40 of the Olympic Charter and subsequently established the key principles. These key principles set out how competitors, team members, coaches, trainers, and officials who are participating in Milano Cortina 2026, who are referred collectively in this document as participants, can engage in and benefit from the commercial opportunities around the Olympic Winter Games. These key principles have been further confirmed in 2023 and shall apply for the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. By following this framework, responsible brands and the athletes whom they sponsor are helping the Olympic movement maintain the solidarity funding model that ensures that all 2006 Olympic teams from every nation can continue to be funded and compete at the Olympic Games, regardless of the availability of personal sponsorship or the level of team funding in their respective countries. The IOC is committed to ensuring that the world can experience the athletes' performance, in particular by arranging the broadcasting of the Olympic Games on a truly global basis. In this way, we hope to raise the profile of all athletes and help them attract personal sponsors. Not while you're in the Olympics, though. The IOC also supports athletes to engage personal sponsors by providing advice through the Athlete 365 program. The illustrative guidance in this document applies to advertising campaigns by NOPers. It supplements and should be read in conjunction with the key principles that we'll read after, set out in the IOC's commercial opportunity for participants during the Olympic Games Milano Cortina 2026 document. These key principles prevail in case of any ambiguity. Capitalized words in this document have the same meanings as in the key principles. NOPers featuring Paralympic athletes in their campaigns should consult the IPC's athlete sponsorship and advertising guidelines for the Milano Cortina 2026 Paralympic Games. If you want me to read those, I will track those down too. To recognize and to ensure the continuity of their long-standing support to the athletes, the Olympic Games and the NOCs and the IOC and the World Federation of the Sporting Goods Industry, WFSGI, have agreed that certain sporting goods brands will be able to promote their athletes before, during, and after Milano Cortina 2026, subject to specific conditions. This is called the WFSGI project. I haven't read into that. These brands must comply with the guidelines and requirements set out in their respective participation agreements entered into with WFSGI. This document is relevant for all advertising activity that covers more than one country. Advertising targeting one country only is subject to the rules of that country's National Olympic Committee, or NOC, and or other relevant organizing committee for the Olympic Games, or OCOGs, which may be different from the key principles. Athletes and their sponsors should check with the relevant NOC or OCOG. If you require contact details, you can reach out here. This document shall be followed by the activation of the IOC's athlete advertising notification portal for non-Olympic partners, featuring athletes in multinational campaigns during the Games period, as defined on the next page. The athlete advertising notification portal has been developed as a simple one-stop notification platform for all brands, but we can't name it better. The notification portal shall be available at this place. Thank you for consulting the key principles. With pleasure, IOC. Generic advertising concepts and examples, i.e., how you're allowed to be as boring AF and actually be allowed to run that post. So, what do we got? The concept of generic advertising is an important one for athletes as personal sponsors that are not Olympic partners. These non-Olympic partners, these NOPers, can continue to run advertising campaigns and show advertising materials during the Games period, during the blackout period of January 30th to February 24th, inclusive, if they have permission from the athlete. They have no Olympic properties being used in the advertising. It respects the policies of the IOC relating to activities incompatible with the values of the Olympic movement and those of the athletes NOC, and the advertising is considered generic. Let's dive into that. Generic advertising is defined in the key principles, coming up next, as advertising that meets all of the following criteria. All of the following. The only connection between, on the one hand, the Olympic movement, i.e. Milano Cortina 2026, the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 Organizing Committee, or an NOC or an NOC's Olympic team, and on the other hand, the relevant advertising's activity is the fact that the advertising uses a participant's image. So the only connection that can be made to literally anything Olympic related or national team related is the image of the participant, of the athlete being sponsored. 2, the advertising must be in market for at least 90 days prior to the Olympic Games period, i.e. October 29, 2025. 3, the advertising must be planned to run consistently and not be materially escalated during the Games period. We talked about that. Criteria 2 and 3 will be applied flexibly where possible to support athletes competing in other competitions and to enable business as usual campaigns. That's the big word, the big phrase here, business as usual. If what you're doing does not look like business as usual to your other online content, you can't do it, is what it means. So, generic advertising campaigns that are planned for the Games period must be notified to the IOC or the relevant NOC in the case of single territory campaigns, if so required by the relevant NOC guidance. Notified advertising will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, but the following examples illustrate some advertising methods that would and would not be regarded as generic advertising. We've got the green meaning yes, the red meaning not allowed, question marks for the case and statement. The case or statement is acceptable subject to certain terms, and then they highlight one of the key principles. So what do we got? So here we go. Example 1 of generic advertising. So let's look at this photo closely. So what you're allowed to do, we're going to call him John Smith. We've got John Smith, a snowboarder. You're allowed to put your brand logo somewhere in the photo. You're allowed to say like, bring out the power. And you're allowed to put the athlete's name. And notice here how it's just previous stats. This is okay. Sweater, hoodie, snowboarder. He's a snowboarder. That's all cool. Why is this okay? This is okay because there is no connection with the Olympic Winter Games other than the image of the participant, John Smith. The brand has demonstrated that the campaign has been in market before October 29, 2025, and the athlete's Olympic achievements are listed factually and not more prominently than other achievements, and there are no Olympic properties being used. So that's all cool. That's all cool. Now they give us what is not allowed because of the connection to the Olympic movement. Did that get shifted over? Let's bring that back. Okay. Wow. How did I do that? This is what's not allowed. Same image, same everything. You can put your brand logo there was fine. The photo of John Smith was fine. The factual stats of John Smith are fine. This is what is not allowed because you used the words Milano. And you even say road to because you've been posting this since October. You're saying road to, but you have the words Milano Cortina, which is owned by other people. So what is not allowed? Despite the campaign being in market for over 90 days and no Olympic properties were being used, a connection with the Olympic Winter Games is made using Road to Milano Cortina reference. You can't even say the name of a place because it's associated with the Olympics, even though, hold on, what's this? Olympic silver medalist. Oh, because it's in the past, you're okay. So you can reference things in the past using Olympic references because that's the exact same on the other side. But because the Olympics now are the relevant ones, you're not allowed. See what I mean by being as boring as possible? Like the difference is like 2 words. So that's what I mean by being as boring as possible. Example 3 is the use of Olympic properties. So what do we got here? We have the brand's logo. We have John Smith. Nothing has changed in the image of John Smith. They say proud to sponsor John Smith for Milano Cortina. So we already know that this is just like fat, big X. Man, not allowed. There's other things though too. Despite the campaign being in market for over 90 days, Olympic properties being Milano Cortina 2026 are used to make a connection with the Olympic Games. I'm also surprised that they don't point out that the connection is being made because you say proud to sponsor this person here. That seems also like something they would not like. Example 4 is this photo with the use of official Olympic team apparel. Okay, so look at this. We have the brand. That's cool. Bring out the power was cool from the previous example number 1. Bring out the power. All cool, all good. What changes? There's not even ever a reference to the Olympics. What changes is the patch on his sweater, on his jacket, and his glove. So basically what they're trying to showcase here is that the NOC has a partnership brand to get gear made, and he's wearing the Olympic gear in the photo. I mean, if you just zoom past this online, you may not even notice that there's a country, a national flag, or a reference to the games. Fat no. Despite the campaign being in the market for over 90 days, Olympic properties are used on the athlete's official Olympic team apparel, and the use of the official Olympic apparel creates a connection with the Olympic Winter Games. But the athlete being an Olympian does not, apparently, in other things. You can know that John Smith is an Olympian. You can know he's going to the Olympics. You can know he's at the Olympics. You can know he's even competing. But you can't have this. This is the association with the Olympics that is not cool. Oh my gosh. Example 5, the creation of a connection. This is big. The creation of the connection with the Olympic Winter Games. So what are we doing here? I guess we're just, this is Jane Smith. All right, we got Jane Smith now. She's a figure skater. Same branding, okay. We're all good here. Everything is the exact same with Jane Smith and the John Smith. He's snowboarding. She's skating. I think they even use the exact same facts. So they have these Jane and John Smith, brother and sister, have also had the exact same career in their respective sports, which is awesome. Yep, exactly the same thing. So what's wrong with this? Why is this not allowed? Well, if you're a keen observer, you will notice a building. And this building, even if you're not, you might not know it. I don't know this building, but it's not allowed because use of iconic Italian imagery creates a connection. That means that there is a connection with the Olympic Winter Games beyond simple use of the image participant. The campaign, therefore, does not meet generic advertising. So you can't put a picture of anything Italian. I bet you even if a piece of pasta was here, you wouldn't be allowed because that is Italian. You can't use Italian language. You can't use buildings, even if they're blurred to almost invisible amounts. You're not allowed because it looks Italian. Same thing with this brand here. Same thing. Well, I don't know what's his name. Patrick. His name's Patrick, we'll call him. This is also not allowed. Look at this photo. Brand, bring out the power. No Olympic reference here. The brand is clearly the same brand. I don't see any Olympic paraphernalia on the athlete. It looks like everything he's paid for. He's skiing. He's going off of what apparently is obviously an Italian mountain range. That's also too close. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to use mountains. You're not allowed to use European-looking buildings because it might be mistaken for Italian. Can't do it. Too much of a connection for the IOC. Fat. Example 6, the in-market period and escalating the frequency of advertising during the Olympic Games. This is where we get big here. So we have a ski jumper, Sven. We'll call him Sven. He is flying through a mountain range, which I'm sure they're going to be pissed off with because mountains are Italian. Not allowed. What do they say? So despite not using Olympic properties or creating any connection with the Olympic Winter Games beyond featuring an image of the participant, hold on, mountain ranges are cool now? Confused. The sponsor was not able to show that the advert had been in the market for more than 90 days, so it cannot be considered generic. Cannot be considered as generic advertising. The athlete advertising notification portal included a section for sponsors to provide the detail of in-market campaigns. Note also that if an advert significantly increases in distribution of frequency during the games period, which should be read out as blackout period, this would also cause to be regarded as non-generic. So, yeah, you can't spend $1 a week in October, November, December, January 29th, and then on January 30th, ramp it up slowly because they actually made it to the Olympics and they're starting to post online about their experience at the Olympics, and they bump it up to $100 a week, $1,000 a week. Not allowed because you can't demonstrate that it is business as usual. A key principle: should be in the market for at least 90 days before the games period, before the blackout period, the in-market time. Should not run consistently and not be material escalated during the games period. So those are the key principles. Has to be in market before 90 days, and you can't start to spend more money because the athlete that you've sponsored is now being relevant. Not allowed. Example 7, business as usual. Here we go. What's this? So we have, she kind of looks like Chloe Kim. We're gonna call her Sophia. Happy Valentine's Day. Say it with chocolate. Sophia. We got a brand, we got chocolate, we have a plain sweater, we got hearts. This must be good. But there's still some uncertainty. Maybe that's only okay with your, it's okay with your NOC as well. This campaign was launched during the games period. So this campaign was launched during the games period, and so does not mean the 90-day in-market requirement. However, the sponsor provided information on the online notification platform that shows that it usually runs similar campaigns at the same time in the non-games years as well, because it's Valentine's Day, and that happens in February. So if you're a keen, clever, cunning business, just start running ads every February, and then you can kind of finagle your way in. The key principle here is where sponsors can show that campaigns reflects business as usual as part of the notification, it may be exempt from the 90-day in-market period requirement. Please ensure that the appropriate details are provided in your notification. Note that a business as usual advert should not contain Olympic properties or otherwise create a connection with the Olympic Games other than by using the participant, as we ran through in examples 1 to 6. So what do we got here now? Example 8, flexibility for athletes participating in other competitions. All right. Not many athletes do that, but if you do, this is what you got. So we have the brand sponsoring, how old is that guy? Good for him. It's at the games. Welcome to Skate America Las Vegas 2025. What is that? November 14 through 16, 2025. We're not sure if that's allowed. We'll read after. The Alpine Ski World Cup. Then we'll call him Manny. A picture of someone competing in a non-Olympic race and referencing the Alpine World Cup by the brand. What do we got here? To provide flexibility for athletes. Oh, I guess they're saying that, wow, this guy's a dual sport. He's doing both. That's what they're saying. To provide flexibility for athletes participating in other sports competitions shortly before or after the games period, exceptions to the 90-day in-market requirement are available. Please ensure that supporting information is provided in the online notification. Note that the advert cannot contain Olympic properties and must still respect the requirement not to create any connection with the Olympic Winter Games other than the use of the participant. So it's okay if you run an ad. This is weird. That's a weird example for me, for them to use. But you're okay to do that. There's a provision if you compete in multiple sports. Example 9, no suggestion of performance enhancement. This is funny. We've got X brand posting on some social media, February 9th. We got the brand saying, you're in top shape thanks to X brand's product. X brand. must be the hockey stick or the skates or the helmet. Even if this advert had been in the market for more than 90 days before the games period and does not use the Olympic properties, because this is bland AF, boring AF, and it does not create an association or a connection with the Olympic Games other than using the participant, it implies performance enhancement by the sponsor's product or services, product or service, so cannot be considered as acceptable generic advertising, because you're not allowed to acknowledge that having a better stick makes you shoot better, better skates, sharper skates makes you skate better. That is a performance enhancement you're not allowed to reference. Advertising must not include statements or imply that a product or service enhanced the athlete's performance. That is the key takeaway, the key principle. What are we doing here? Example 10, congratulatory advertising by NOPers, non-Olympic partners. So what you can do February 26th, that's the big piece here. You can say congratulations athlete name on your amazing performance. We're so proud of you. Team X brand. This congratulatory ad of or from a NOPer is posted after the games period, after the blackout period, and does not use any Olympic imagery or Olympic properties. A similar message of support posted before the games period is also possible. Cool. So it's a picture of athlete name by X brand 2 days after the blackout period is over. What you cannot do, February 9th. X brand is going to, there's so many things wrong with this one for the IOC. Hashtag Cortina, hashtag Team X brand athlete, at athlete name, competing at the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026, Team NOC, Team Canada, Team that's Australia. These congratulatory and support ads are posted in the games period and use Olympic imagery and Olympic properties. They are not in line with key principles. So much of this is not allowed. That might even be something that gets like monetarily sanctioned and kicked out of the Olympics. Another thing that's not allowed for the same athlete name. Congrats, athlete name, on your amazing performance. We're all so proud of you. This is so innocuous. We loved sponsoring you. We are happy you made it. Not allowed. February 14th. The key principle is that non-Olympic partners cannot publish congratulatory advertising during the games period. This also covers other messages of support and commiseration for athletes competing at the Olympic Winter Games. Note that these kinds of messages can be posted by sponsors before and after the games period without using Olympic properties or creating any connection with the Olympic Games. I mean, these are just, yeah. Two more examples left in this illustrative guidance on how to be as boring as possible. Example 11, the athlete thank you message. We've heard this alluded to a lot. So what can you not do? Athlete name on February 9th says, thank you, X brand, for being with me all those years. And then there's NOC information. There's an Olympic medal in the picture. There's a logo for the games. There's a podium. I mean, based on the principles of this book, based on the principles of this guidance, it is pretty straightforward. We can see a lot of things the IOC does not like. The accompanying images uses Olympic properties, official Olympic kit, and an Olympic medal. That's definitely not allowed. You cannot celebrate the fact that you have won an Olympic medal with your brand this way. An unknown, we're not quite sure here. Posted February 9th, that's a no-no. Thank you, Brand X, for being with me all those years. That sounds kind of vague. There's no Olympic association. The picture is boring. It's the athlete. It's nothing relating in any way. So what do they say? The key principle. Thank you messages to personal NOPers are limited to one per personal non-Olympic partner. Participants may repost or share content from the IOC's, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOGs, their national Olympic teams, or their NOC's social media accounts. However, such reposts or sharing must not include messages of thanks or otherwise refer to non-Olympic partners or their products or services. A single thank you message to each personal non-Olympic partner during the Olympic period can be posted to multiple platforms. Posting a single identical message to multiple platforms must take place at the same time. So I still don't fully know if this one would be allowed. I guess it would be okay if they are reposting something that came from the IOC or the Milano Cortina organizing committee or their NOC. It's a little vague. I guess they don't even tell you if this is actually okay or not. I guess you would think it's okay. The key principle here is the thank you message must not include any Olympic properties or any images or videos of Olympic venues or Olympic medal ceremonies or feature official Olympic team uniforms or Olympic medals, not include any statement or imply that a product or service enhanced the participant's performance, not include a personal endorsement of the relevant product or service, not be linked to any activities incompatible with the values of the Olympic movement, gambling, and not make any connection with the Olympic Winter Games, the IOC, the Olympic movement, the OCOG, the NOC, or the National Olympic Team. Thank you messages to Olympic partners should not be combined with messages to non-Olympic partners. Whew. Last, example 12. I think that's the last one. Yeah. Example 12, non-Olympic partners sharing or reposting content. So now this is your noper who wants to repost something you posted. February 9th, 2026, the brand comp reposts and says, amazing performance in Milano yesterday by our new brand ambassador at athlete name. That's how to hashtag bring the power. The post said, thank you X brand, my personal sponsor. It looks like the post that the athlete made would be fine. It's a generic photo by what we see. And they just say, thank you for being my sponsor. They don't allude to the games in any capacity, but then they reposted it with reference to the Olympics. So no good. There's a couple of them, so we'll look at all of those first. Second one, Team Canada. Team Canada posts. Team Canada walks the opening ceremony. Milano Cortina, Team Canada. Hashtag Milano Cortina 2026. Hashtag Team Canada. Let's just assume one of these athletes were the sponsored athlete by X brand. What we can see based on this, they say they repost the NOC, which they are allowed to do. It says, can't wait to see their performances over the next 2 weeks. What do we got? Definitely can't do either of those because it references the Olympics. Personal non-Olympic partners cannot repost Olympic content or athletes' thank you message. The personal sponsor cannot repost the thank you message by the athlete. And they also cannot repost Olympic content. Okay, so that's why in Team Canada it is considered Olympic content. So they cannot repost it. Big fat no. The last example here, X brand posts. Nice one, X athlete, X brand ambassador. So that seems fine, innocuous. They're just saying, good job, but they're not saying about what. It could be anything, but it is posted on February 9th, so it's within the blackout period. And it seems fine. Like this post on itself would be fine, but there's a huge problem with the post the athlete made. The athlete is in generic clothes. She is boring in the photo, but she has her Olympic medal on. That's the problem. And all they say is, I did it. That's all the athlete posted. I did it. A photo in generic white t-shirt and looks like leggings and a Olympic medal. And that is a no-go because personal non-Olympic partners cannot repost athlete content that includes Olympic stakeholders or Olympic medals. Basically, if you want to celebrate your athlete in any way possible, you have to have really boring, nondescript photos and comments, and you can't even use hashtags. No hashtags are allowed. Why is that? It is because the worldwide Olympic partners, they have paid the IOC for the right to celebrate that. Again, same athletes as we've seen in other same companies as we've seen in other documents. This is why these companies are the reason why your mom and pop ski shop and your downhill energy bar from the other video are unable to do any of this. They can say they gave no examples of what is possible, actually, which at least in the other ones, they tell you what you can do. These other ones are just flat out not allowed. And that is the illustrative guidance for the IOC Rule 40 Milano Cortina 2024, which leaves us with just one last document to read through. The 9-page key principle IOC commercial opportunities for participants during the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Super easy to read document. Strap in for this one. Page 1 of 9. Here we go. I'm going to zoom in. Is that... Okay, I think that works. We are... Take a deep breath. We're going in. Purpose and implementation. This document sets out the key principles for the use of participants' images for advertising as defined in the scope section below that are applicable to the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Milano Cortina 2026. Further to bylaw. I'm interesting. I think that might be an error. Further to the bylaw 3 to Rule 40 of the Olympic Charter, it seeks to clarify what is possible during the Games period as defined below, which we call the blackout period, and put participants as defined below in a better position to work with their sponsors in a manner consistent with their rights and responsibilities under the Athletes' Declaration and the Olympic Charter, i.e. none. All participants are permitted to promote their sponsors, and all sponsors are permitted to use participant images during the Games period in accordance with the principles in this document. It is the responsibility of all participants to comply with these principles. Further, organizations using athletes in their advertising and sports federations and agents who are involved in advising athletes in relation to their advertising activities, we will want to ensure that they are acting and advising athletes in accordance with these principles. There's a reason documents like this are worded like this. They are dry and heavy and back at it. The principles enable athletes and their sponsors to continue to run well-planned campaigns that do not seek to take undue advantage of the Olympic Games themselves. Roles and responsibilities. Each National Olympic Committee, or NOC, is responsible for the implementation of these principles in its territory. In the host countries of Milano Cortina 2026 and future editions of the Olympic Games, responsibility for the implementation of these principles is shared between the NOC and the relevant organizing committee for the Olympic Games, the OCOG. The legal framework may vary from country to country depending on the applicable laws, regulations, relevant case law, and specific agreements between NOCs and participants, in particular regarding to the financial support and the support in kind that the NOCs provide to participants. As a result, the implementation of these principles by NOCs may vary. Oh, these are mouthfuls. Whew. Each NOC will oversee compliance with these principles in connection with advertising activity targeted in its territory. Therefore, the relevant NOC must be notified of advertising targeted at a particular territory in accordance with Key Principle 2, unless stipulated differently by the relevant NOC. Advertising is regarded as targeted at a territory if it, 1, uses a participant who represents the NOC of that particular territory, and 2, is either in the local language of that territory or country, and or, in the case of paid media, published in media outlets targeted at that territory or country. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, will oversee compliance with these principles in connection with international advertising activity, in consultation with the relevant NOCs and OCOGs. The IOC must therefore be notified of advertising not targeted at a particular territory or targeted at more than one country. Not targeted at a particular... Legal stuff, my goodness. Context. Page 3. Context. Ensuring global participation at the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games are unique. They are the only true global multi-sport event and represent the highest sporting endeavor of an athlete's career. It's essential that as many countries as possible are represented from around the world. To ensure that all teams are funded to be able to prepare for and compete at the Olympic Games, the IOC runs an international marketing program based on the principle of solidarity. NOCs participate in and receive revenues from the global program with the understanding that revenues will be shared with every other NOC in order to fund the operations of NOCs, sport development, and Olympic Games participation, as well as to support the hosting of the Olympic Games themselves. This program helps secure funding of all national Olympic teams regardless of the individual profile, commercial, or sporting success of their athletes. In addition, NOCs run national marketing programs within their territories to fund their operations, sport development, Olympic Games participation, and other programs. The OCOGs also run national marketing programs to generate private funding for the Olympic Games. Funding through these programs from the private sector helps reduce reliance on taxpayer funding for the Games. Like most sponsorship programs, Olympic marketing programs are based on granting exclusive rights of association with the Olympic movement, including through the use of Olympic marks and images for advertising purposes. However, part of the enduring appeal of the Olympic Games is that advertising at the Olympic Games is restricted to ensure the focus remains on the athletes' sport performance. The implication of an association with the Olympic Games through use of athletes is particularly powerful during and immediately before the Olympic Games, so they even recognize that it's powerful in those moments. Accordingly, the Olympic Charter has traditionally established limitations on the ability of athletes and other Olympic Games participants to use their images for advertising during the Games. These limited restrictions help to maintain the distinctiveness of official Olympic marketing programs and so sustain the funding of global athlete participation and the organization of the Olympic Games. At this point, I think you can be the judge if these are limited restrictions or not. To me, they are not. Athletes' rights and responsibilities. To determine appropriate principles, the IOC has put athletes' interests first and foremost. In particular, these principles have been informed by the Athletes' Rights and Responsibilities Declaration, a historic athlete-driven initiative developed by athletes and for athletes through a worldwide consultation process. Specifically, the declaration, quote, aspires to promote the ability and opportunity of athletes to leverage opportunities to generate income in relation to their sporting career, name and likeness, while recognizing the intellectual property or others' rights, rules of the event, and sports organizations, as well as the Olympic Charter, end quote. And again, quote, encourages athletes to respect the solidarity principle of the Olympic movement, which allows assistance and support to be provided among athletes and members of the Olympic movement, end quote. The principles explained in this document have been developed in accordance with these rights and responsibilities. Next section, personal sponsorship during Milano Cortina 2026. The principles are clear. Athletes are able to generate income through personal sponsorships and appearing in advertising for those sponsors, and can continue to do so by being involved with well-planned advertising during Milano Cortina 2026. In addition, it is hoped that the worldwide exposure provided to athletes participating in Milano Cortina 2026 through media coverage, including the IOC's global broadcast arrangements, can help raise their profile for years to come. They even recognize this. By accepting some limited restrictions on these activities during Milano Cortina 2026, athletes who enjoy personal sponsorship deals are helping to secure funding to support all national Olympic teams, regardless of their profile or success of their athletes. In this way, those athletes are helping to ensure athletes from around the world are able to participate at Milano Cortina 2026 and future Olympic Games on an economically viable basis by supporting the principle of solidarity. In the case of NOC's marketing programs, by accepting some limited restrictions on their activities during Milano Cortina 2026, athletes who enjoy personal sponsorship deals are helping to support all participants within the National Olympic Team, other teams, and their NOCs, other sport development programs. These limited restrictions also support the funding of Milano Cortina 2026 and future Olympic Games, at which the athletes compete, by enabling the organizing committees to ensure private funding of the organization of those Olympic Games, to recognize and to ensure continuity of their long-standing support to the athletes and the Olympic movement. The IOC and the World Federation of Sporting Goods Industry, WFSG, have agreed that certain sporting goods brands will be able to promote their athletes before and during Milano Cortina 2026, subject to specific conditions in the WFSG project. Scope of these key principles. These principles apply during the Games period, the blackout period, meaning the period from the date of opening of the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Village until the date 2 days after the Milano Cortina 2026 closing ceremony inclusive, January 30th, 2026 until February 24th, 2026. These principles apply to competitors, team members, coaches, trainers, and officials who are participating in Milano Cortina 2026, who are referred to collectively in this document as participants. These principles do not apply to Olympians who have competed in previous Olympic Games but who are not participating in Milano Cortina 2026 in any capacity, nor do they apply to other accredited people, including broadcasters and volunteers. These principles are specific to the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Please consult the rules applicable to the Paralympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026 separately. The use of participants' images includes any reference to a participant, whether by their personal appearance, use of their image, or any representation of that image, name, or sports performance, including performance at Milano Cortina 2026 and recent historical performances. So even the ads we saw before that referenced factual previous Olympic results, you can't run something referencing current results. These principles apply to advertising, meaning all forms of commercial promotion, including social media and social network posts and promotions by organizations or by participants as part of or relating to a commercial relationship with the organization, whether paid for or not, as well as traditional advertising in paid-for space. including press adverts, billboards, television and radio adverts, and online advertising. Direct advertising, PR, including personal appearances and press releases, lending or gifting of products to participants, on product and in-store promotions. Compliance. The IOC, the relevant OCOG, or the relevant NOC can revoke the permissions granted by these principles or require advertising to be withdrawn or amended if these principles are not complied with. Ultimately, participants who do not comply with terms of this document may be sanctioned by the IOC, the relevant OCOG, and or NOC. Key principles. Here we go. All participants are permitted to promote their sponsors, and all sponsors are permitted to use participants' images, in each case including Olympic partners and non-Olympic partners during the Games period in accordance with the following principles. Number 1. Advertising by Olympic partners. 1A. Olympic partners are those brands or companies that have sponsorship or official merchandise licensing contracts with the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOG, or NOCs, and the official Olympic broadcasters which have been granted rights to broadcast Milano Cortina 2026 by the IOC. 1B. Olympic partners are permitted to use participant images for advertising, subject only to obtaining any necessary consents from the participants featured. The terms of the relevant Olympic partners contract with the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOG, or the NOC as applicable, and respecting the supplementary guidelines for Olympic partners, which will be issued by the NOC and an NOC prior to the selection of the participants by their NOC. 1C. Olympic partners may undertake congratulatory advertising during the Games period. See Key Principle 4. 1D. Advertising activities by Olympic partners in accordance with the Key Principle 1 are not subject to any additional consents or processes other than the normal approval processes that may apply under their contract with the relevant Olympic organization. 2. Advertising by non-Olympic partners. All of your mom and pop shops and local people. 2A. Non-Olympic partners are those brands, companies, or other organizations which are not Olympic partners. 2B. Non-Olympic partners are permitted to use participant images for advertising during the Games period, subject to obtaining any necessary consent from the participants featured, and subject to respecting the policies of the IOC and the relevant NOC in respect of activities incompatible with the values of the Olympic movement or the relevant NOC. For example, prohibitions on sponsorship in connection with tobacco, prohibited drugs, and other categories, example, gambling and pornography or immoral businesses. Also, if that advertising does not use any Olympic properties, as described in the paragraph G below, and if that advertising constitutes generic advertising, as described in the Key Principles 3 below, and is compliant with any generic advertising rules of the relevant NOC. 2C. To benefit from the permission granted under this principle, non-Olympic partners must notify the IOC or the NOC of the targeted country, as applicable, of their generic advertising plans by no later than 19th of December 2025 through a designated online platform which is accessible via the following link. 2D. This notification requirement simply enables the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOG, and any relevant NOCs to be aware of activity that is planned for their marketplace and verify compliance with these principles and the principles referred to in paragraph B above, which is all of the what you are not allowed to do. Any feedback on advertising plans will be provided within 10 days of receipt by the IOC or NOC as applicable. 2E. For social media advertising, it is not necessary to provide advance notice of each individual post, but notice must be given setting out a description of the social media advertising plan, including the nature and planned content of the posts by no later than December 19th, 2025. 2F. To provide opportunities to athletes who may qualify for Milano Cortina 2026 after 19th of December 2025, the IOC will consider advertising plans notified after this date so long as it's at least 15 days' advance notice is given through the notification platform before any advertising is published. They don't reference that in the other places. We'll let you do it, but there still has to be a 15-day runway. 2G. For the purposes of these principles, Olympic properties, this is everything you cannot use as a NOPR. The Olympic symbol, the Milano Cortina 2026 emblem, mascots, and pictograms, and Milano Cortina 2026 graphics. Any NOC emblem or emblem of a National Olympic team. The words Olympic, Olympics, Olympic Games, Olympiad, Olympiads. The name of the host city and the year of the games, i.e. Milano Cortina 2026. Any Olympic-related words and symbols registered as trademarks and or protected by relevant legislation in the country of the NOC which the participant represents or the country in which the advertising is made available. The names of the Olympic teams, such as Équipe de France or Italian team. The Olympic motto, Citius Altus Fortis Communitor. All films, musical works, artistic works, and designs created by the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOG, or any NOC. And any other symbols, designs, works, words, or expressions that are translations of or which could be confused with any of those listed above. I.e., that's where you get no use of hashtags. Can't use any hashtags either. Section 2H under generic advertising. Generic advertising means any advertising of a company or brand, where the only connection between, on one hand, Milano Cortina 2026, the IOC, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOG, and or an NOC, and or an NOC's National Olympic Team, and on the other hand, the relative marketing activity is the fact that the advertising uses a participant's image. Company or brand which has been in market for at least 90 days before the games period, and which is run consistently and not materially escalated during the games period. 2I, to provide flexibility for athletes also participating in other sports competitions shortly before or after the games period, the IOC will consider exemptions to the elements 2 and 3 of the generic advertising requirements described in A and on a case-by-case basis, so long as element I is respected up here. 2J. Similarly, the IOC will consider exemptions on a case-by-case basis to elements 2 and 3 for advertising activity that properly relates to business as usual advertising by brands to which an athlete is affiliated. The IOC will require information substantiating any kind of business as usual activity, and in any event, element 1 of the description of generic advertising must still be respected. That is the Valentine's Day ad we saw earlier, or the chocolate-loving Valentine's adjacent ad. 2K. For example of generic advertising, please consult the illustrative guidance available via the Athlete 365 portal, which I already read through. 3. The congratulatory advertising. We are almost through. 3A. For these purposes, congratulatory advertising means both supporting messages, encouraging, sympathizing with, or otherwise supporting an athlete or a National Olympic team in connection with their participant at Milano Cortina 2026. So congratulatory also just means supportive. Congratulatory messaging, praising the athlete or a National Olympic team for their achievement at Milano Cortina 2026. 3B. Congratulatory advertising is not regarded as being generic advertising because of the intrinsic connection with Milano Cortina 2026. They are reaching. 3C. Congratulatory advertising may be undertaken, 1, by Olympic partners at any time, including during the games period. 2, by non-Olympic partners before and after the Games period, but without using any Olympic properties. So you still can't say congrats at the Olympics. And 3, at any time, including the Games period, by those sporting goods brands participating in the WFSGI project in the manner as set out in the framework of the WFSGI project. 4, online messages by participants. 4A, participants may provide simple messages of thanks on their personal websites and or personal social media accounts to Olympic partners and or their personal non-Olympic partners, including during the Games period, but their posts must not include any statement or imply that a product or service enhanced the participant's performance. It must not include a personal endorsement of the relevant product or service, as distinct from thanking the sponsor for their support, and must respect the policies of the IOC and the relevant NOC relating to activities incompatible with the values of the Olympic movement or the relevant NOC, for example, prohibitions on sponsorships in connection with tobacco, prohibited drugs, and other categories, example, gambling and pornographic or immoral businesses, or in respects of limits on using images or videos of the athlete in his or her national Olympic team kit or any Olympic medal. 4B, thank you messages to non-Olympic partners are limited to one thank you message per personal non-Olympic partner posted via the participants' social media accounts. Different rules by some NOCs may apply. A single identical message posted at the same time on a number of social media platforms would count as one message for these purposes. Such posts, including any accompanying content, must not suggest a commercial connection between the IOC, Milano Cortina 2026, an NOC, or a National Olympic team and a non-Olympic partner. 4C, participants may repost or share content from the IOC's, the Milano Cortina 2026 OCOGs, their National Olympic teams, or their NOC's social media accounts. However, such reposts or sharing must not include messages of thanks or otherwise refer to non-Olympic partners. 4D, it is not necessary for participants to notify the IOC or their NOC before posting thank you messages online. But participants should consult with their NOC if they have any doubts as to whether the message complies with these principles. Specific guidelines apply to the messages within the framework of the WFSGI project, and athletes will receive relevant information in this respect. 4E, athletes should always be aware of the influence they have over their fans' buying decisions if they promote a brand in their posts. Athletes, like other influencers, should be honest, transparent, and not misleading their followers about whether they have been paid, incentivized, or rewarded to promote a brand in their posts. This should be clearly stated when a brand is referenced in a post in any way. And that is the Behemoth document. Whoa. These documents here, I think, are exploitative of athletes. As I've just read through every single word of the documents, it's clear that the IOC does not want athletes to be able to, in any meaningful way, basically take money from the IOC. And it's not taking money from the IOC, it's taking money that the IOC can make off of the athlete directly. So if an athlete can make money that isn't connected to the IOC doesn't want it. These are my takeaways here, and they are wildly overreaching in what you can and cannot say, and what they interpret as advertising or even a congratulatory message being considered anything that it shows support for. It was wild. And the fact that an athlete can't say, thanks for my ski waxing product. I used the right one today. The fact that that is not allowed and could result in a financial fine and or even expulsion from the Olympic Village makes my blood boil. If you sat through that, if you sat through however long that was, kudos. I think you have a penchant for pain, like I do. But what are your takeaways? I think that the biggest thing for me, leaving this, going into the Milano Cortina 2026 #Olympic IOC OCOG. Use every term I can that IOC would hate. Time of the blackout period is when you find an athlete that you like and that you sponsor, or that you like and you think is valuable. Maybe find a way to support them outside of the Olympics. These athletes have value to the world. I love everything the athletes stand for as themselves, and I hate everything the IOC stands for in its actions to silence these athletes. They're awesome. Support them. Connect with the ones that you end up loving that go viral, because now that you've sat through this, you will understand that they're viral. The IOC and the broadcasting companies have made shit tons of money off of them, and the athlete made zero. And if they made money, they may have been kicked out of the Olympic Games, which is wrong. Oh, I need some water.